The last few days have been one of the most consequential in recent memory. First, we got the news that Pope Francis passed away on Easter Monday.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, con profondo dolore devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
Then we found out that the World Economic Forum chairman Klaus Schwab had finally stepped down. And while these two stories might not seem related, I'm here to share a crazy theory with you that connects them. Now, I'm sure you'll all agree that the Vatican has always been controversial. I mean, there are so many videos of people talking about the secrecy and scandals related to the headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church.
The Vatican run the world.
Most people don't digest this. They're the largest single stockholder in the world. They own the most property in the world that pays no taxes. It's about 2,000-year-old club. And it's in the catacombs of the Vatican.
This is scary. You ever heard about the prophecy of the popes? It's a 12th century prophecy hidden in the Vatican's archives. You know, the library that's said to contain the deepest secret of the world. It claims to list every pope from the year 1143 right up to, guess who? Pope Francis, our current pope. But here's the terrifying part. It just stops right there. No pope after him, only two words. Judgment Day.
Vatican preparing guidelines for apparitions and other supernatural phenomena. So guidelines, the Vatican puts out guidelines all the time, and they update them all the time. But regarding supernatural phenomenon and apparitions, they haven't done it since 1978. Why are they so concerned that we might not understand the difference between apparitions and other phenomenons? I don't know. Maybe we should look and see how the Vatican defines an apparition. An apparition refers to an instance in which a divine entity, such as a saint, the Virgin Mary, or Christ himself, makes itself known to a person on earth. I told you it was weird. What do they think we're going to see that we would not be able to discern between the supernatural and other phenomena? Is this really just an update to their guidelines, or is it a preemptive strike?
Klaus Schwab goes in the same direction and spells this out, for example, in his book, The Great Reset, and demands beyond that, supported by the current Pope, by the way, a world government under the UN, which has, in the meantime, been brought under control by the WEF.
Now, you might say that a lot of these are just conspiracy theories, but the fact remains, a lot of people, many of whom are Catholic, don't really trust the Vatican authorities. And to make matters worse, these high-ranking officials continue making some bizarre decisions. For instance, I'm sure some of you remember the time they sold prime real estate only yards away from St. Peter's Basilica to the Four Seasons Group. Now, this would not be controversial if Bill Gates didn't own the Four Seasons Group. And what's crazy is that this was happening at a time when people across the world were rising up against Bill Gates and his control over the World Health Organization.
Arrest Bill Gates! 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 Arrest Bill Gates!
Now, Pope Francis was also a pretty divisive figure. You can see this by just reading the messages he's received after his death. People like Barack Obama have praised him for his leftist policies, while many have called him a Marxist. And this is where the wild theories about his death show up.
Y'all, they saying JD Vance killed the Pope. Wow, that's crazy. Who said that? Me. Let's keep the rumor going. What I want to know is how terrible of a person does JD Vance have to be in order for you to meet the Pope, okay, on Easter Sunday, a blessed day, and the Pope want to hit next day shipping as soon as he meets you?
You see, only a day before his death, he received Vice President JD Vance.
Hello. So good to see you. God bless you. Good morning. How are you?
Find yourself.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Happy Easter to you, Father. Wonderful. I know you've not been feeling great, but it's good to see you in better health.
And because of this meeting, people are now saying that he was taken out by the US Vice President in some kind of top secret mission. And let me be very clear, this theory is being promoted by both the left and the right-wing influencers. I mean, here's JFK's grandson, Jack Schlossberg, who is straight up blaming J.D. Vance for the death of Pope Francis. These theories have become so prevalent that even the mainstream media has been talking about them.
That J.D. Vance killed Pope Francis, others claiming, can you meet with Putin next?
One of these online sleuths has pointed out how the vice president wore a yellow tie while meeting the Pope.
Pray for you every day. God bless you. So good to see you. Good morning. How are you? Find yourself. Good. Yeah, thank you.
Now, if you're confused about what that signifies, here's a chart showing how the color yellow has been historically connected to the word Q, which of course has a lot of significance in the right-wing political circles. These accounts also point out how J.D. Vance changed his tie while meeting other Vatican officials. These people then shared a Truth Social post from Donald Trump, which he made only hours before Pope Francis died. In the post, the president said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but rather by those who watch them without doing anything to stop them." Now, of course, this is a direct quote from Albert Einstein, and according to many people online, the president was hinting at the Pope's passing. And the reason why they think Donald Trump was against the Pope is simple. The Pope took many actions that directly oppose the current U.S. administration. For instance, he allowed transgender people inside the Vatican.
And they are all going today on a bus to the Vatican to have lunch with Pope Francis.
On Sunday, the pontiff hosted a lunch for more than 1,000 people to mark the Catholic Church's World Day of the Poor.
No matter how many surgeries you have or chemicals you inject, if you're born with male DNA in every cell of your body, you can never become a woman. You're not going to be a woman.
He had very good connections to George Soros and his Open Society foundations. He was also a pretty big supporter of immigration, and J.D. Vance, on the other hand, has been giving speeches all over Europe to stop this inflow of migrants.
It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction?
That is madness, sheer madness. To close the border and leave them there, that is madness. The migrant has to be received.
Ambedue sono contro la vita, sia quello che butta via I migranti, sia quello che uccide I bambini.
There are two words that bring fear: emergency and invasion.
Cerca accoglienza.
But the people taking to the sea are not invading. They're seeking hospitality.
Pope this morning had some very harsh words for the...
I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope wants to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was the first communion as a Catholic, confirmation as a Catholic. You ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not?
So you can see why these people think the Pope was taken out by the US Vice President. However, this isn't the full story. You know, I'm usually one who doesn't shut down any theory unless I have direct proof contradicting it. And of course, this theory might also be true. However, here are the facts. So far, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have only released positive messages about the late Pope.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis.
And even more importantly, the Pope was 88 years old, and he'd been sick for a long, long time. In fact, the newspapers were talking about his expected passing even back in February. So I don't see why Donald Trump would send the U.S. Vice President on a James Bond-style mission to take out someone who was on borrowed time anyway. And also, no disrespect to J.D. Vance, but he won't be my first choice for such an insane mission. However, I do think Donald Trump was hinting at something when he made that Truth Social post. I believe he knew Klaus Schwab was about to step down, and this was his way of telling other such actors to stop messing with his plans. I mean, you gotta remember, Klaus Schwab had some wild plans for the US and the rest of the world.
What we have to confront is a deep, systemic, and structural restructuring of our world. And this will take some time. And the world will look differently after we have gone through this transition process.
Huge change in the mortality rates in developing countries, which then has this effect of reducing population growth. That's this big benefit that then makes everything like education and nutrition a lot easier. So I have very high expectations there.
I hope many will follow you. We will facilitate it in any case.
We also know that President Trump has clarified many times how much he hates the WEF and other such globalist institutions.
Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique.
So the removal of Klaus Schwab from power is a victory for our president and a clear sign that his pressure on Europe is starting to bear fruit. Now, I would love to know what you guys think about the theories about Pope Francis. Also, tell me in the comments section if you want me to make more in-depth videos on the Vatican. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.